Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to this lecture. My name is George Stanchev from Pure 5. I'll be the host of this panel. And I have two very famous individuals from the industry here that are going to talk about consistency. They're going to talk about whole plant extracts and how they're attractive to the customers. These guys, they have over 10 years experience into the cannabis and they've been taking a very important role into the cannabis industry. So again, I am a CEO of Pure 5 Extraction. Pure 5 Extraction is a company which started 25 years ago as a fragrance and flavor company, producing machines for the botanical space, focusing on flavor, taste, and experience of the customer. We've been in the cannabis field for 10 years and changing the consumer perception of values of the cannabis plant, replicating the strains. So I'll give chance to the two panelists to present themselves. Mark.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Mark Vuzzo. I work with a company called Pure Blend Science. Started working with CBD and oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I made the cardinal mistake. Basically been working with the cannabis plant. I took a real interest when I found out that the oils many years ago and how they were made and the lack of representation of the actual strain. That really intrigued me, and I've been studying that for...
The focus to the user of this strain. So in general, mood generation is done by the terps, and that's very important because every single strain we use, indica, sativa, hybrid, all this function is based in terpene profile. And studying the terpene profiles, characterizing terpene profiles is very important to figure out what we're going to use for what type of condition to improve mood. There are examples here. Of course, focus and energy, we're going to use sativa strains. Jack Herer, Durban Poison, the profile, Caryophyllene is first, that's the sesqui terp. Then we have the myrcene, terpinolene, octamine, these are monoterps. Strains for relaxation, of course, this should be indica, purple kush, baba kush, myrcene is the first, then we have pinene, humulene, limonene. Strains for arousal. So this also, limonene first, caryophyllene is your sesqui terp, myrcene and linalool, your monoterps. The next thing that cannabis brings to the customers, to the users, wellness control. So here the cannabinoids come in play. When the mood is elevated, and usually the terpenes, as you know, the terpenes are the hormones of the plant, they really prepare your body to receive the cannabinoids. Some of the terpenes, they also activate receptors. That's how they improve the bioavailability of the cannabinoids. But in this case, all these 40 diseases or conditions, they are taken from NIH. Officially, government has studied these conditions and identified that cannabis helps on any of these conditions. How does it work? So we have two main receptors into the body, CB1 and CB2. Everybody knows that now. And they're all over our body in different organs. There are 9 basic body functional systems: the circulatory, respiratory, excretory, reproductive, nervous, muscular, and so on. So all these systems, they have their receptors, and they can be activated by certain cannabinoids. Usually CB1 receptor is activated by the CBD, CB2 receptors is activated by THC. And the CB2 receptors are mostly into the nervous system and the hormonal systems, while the CB1 receptors are mainly into the tissue and the immune system. So by knowing what condition we're going to treat, we're going to focus on THC dominant or CBD dominant plant with a proper terpene profile. There are examples for strains for AD and ADHD. Again, we have a terpene profile of caryophyllene and pinene, and we have hybrid strains that are chosen to activate the certain receptors for the CB1 receptors. Strains for anxiety, we can select certain strains. Sour Space Candy, Sweet and Sour Widow. Strains for PTSD. These are officially supported strains for these conditions. White Lotus Skunk, again we have a certain terpene profile and certain cannabinoid profile that is best for use these strains in certain conditions. And this again according NIH. The third part of what makes the cannabis extract attractive is the flavor development. So the flavor, we have different flavors and they all are present into the cannabis. Again, there are different compounds like flavonoids and the sulfur compounds that bring this taste out, but we have to consider them as a part of this full body extract that we're going to take from the plant. So this table shows vertical changes of the aroma and horizontal it changes of the taste per strain, and all these compounds combined in there. A few things about extraction methods, because now we know we can use the strains as they are, we can smoke them, we can dab them, we can do a lot of things with the plant by itself. But the future comes into concentration, because when you have extracts that are concentrated and preserved exactly as the full spectrum of the cannabis, then we have something very valuable that we can use anytime and use different delivery method for it. We just have to know how best we can obtain it. And there are two main methods of extraction, solventless and solvent extraction. The solventless, everybody know, there are pretty much 3-4 methods, by sifting, by pressing, by ice water hash making, or microwave extraction. Usually the most popular now is the third one, ice water hash, because it really preserves the hash terpene profile. But when we talk about solventless extraction, nothing that has a solvent is selective. So with that said, what we obtain through the solventless extraction is going to have a lot of other compounds except cannabinoids and the terpenes, the ones that we talk about, like waxes and lipids, which we have to think about either describing or mitigating as a second step. The solvent extractions, they're usually the most famous ones are alcohol, CO2, hydrocarbon, and aerosol. Each extraction provides a different type of extract, and that because of the polarity of the molecule and the solubility of the solvent. These are different extract from different methods. The rosin press, that's the solventless extract. We're going to see on the top left the ice water hash after breaking down from the plant. Ethanol extraction after the first run without distillation. On the left side is after distillation and winterization. CO2 extraction usually before the winterization and distillation, then the hydrocarbon extraction, and R134 aerosol extraction. So each extraction has their own appearance and their own consistencies into the final extract, while the distillate on the left is the processed form of those extracts without most of the compounds we talk about. That's why distillate doesn't really have a lot of taste. It's just concentration of the cannabinoids. This table shows what usually solvent you use to extract what compounds from the plant. Very important when you take a decision on the solvents. The aerosol is the one that extracts most of the full spectrum oil compounds. Hydrocarbon a little bit more, including some of the acids and lipids. Alcohol, it's wider, like this is 100% alcohol. When it is diluted in water, the solubility shifts to the right, which means the polarity shifts to the right. And the CO2, sub and supercritical. Subcritical CO2, as you see, only terpenes, it doesn't touch the cannabinoids. The cannabinoids are right there, the light alcohols, flavonoids section. And the supercritical, it has a lot of wide extraction range. That's why you have to process it with alcohol, 100% alcohol, to narrow down the range of compounds you're going to extract with CO2. And after you do that, you pretty much lose the terpene side also. So when you select your method, be sure what you're using to get the right compounds in your extract, because your customer is going to look for it. And if they're not looking for it now, they're going to look for it tomorrow, because this is an essential part of experience to putting together products. This is an example of transferring the terpenes from the flower to the live resin and hash resin form of aerosol extraction. The first 24 terps, they transfer in the same dependency, just multiplication ratio is different, like 20 times into the live resin, or 3 times into the hash resin. But they repeat themselves in the same order, which means you're going to have the same experience as the flower. This is the purpose of selecting the right method and making the right products, which are reflecting the strains, the actual strains. And the nature is the best formulator. Once you, and Mark mentioned that, once you take it apart, you cannot and even put it back together, it's not the same. You always lose something, always. That's why try to get all the terps together at the first run, together with cannabinoids, and use it as it is, as natural as possible, without heat, without pressure, and without chemicals which create byproducts. When I say that, usually when you use CO2 under pressure, it creates carboxylic acid, which makes pH lower, also creates byproduct. Be aware of that when you use your methods. Same thing happened with ethanol. And when you use solvents with more inert molecules that doesn't make any byproducts, that's the best for your conversion. When you preserve all the compounds inside of your extract, you increase natural bioavailability. You don't need even to isomerize the extracts. You preserve antioxidant activity by preserving all these compounds inside and maintaining pH normal. You can mitigate mold and yeast if your extraction is selective, so you don't really get any of the mold, yeast, heavy metals, and undesired compounds into your extracted oils that may be present into the flour. And color is not your enemy. Color means good. Even chlorophyll, which people doesn't like because of the taste, is also very helpful, because the difference between the chlorophyll and the red blood cell, like in the body, is the central atom, magnesium instead iron, and it's very well supportive compound for the human health as well. But into a good to make a good extract that is appealing, you're really going to leave the chlorophyll out. Okay, so that was for the slides. I'm going to give some time to the panelists to discuss important steps in what they've seen making those extracts into
that George just presented to us, and see how we apply this to the real world and what kind of reactions that we see from when we apply this. So I'm just going to pick one or two examples. Let's look at this slide right now. Preserving antioxidant activity. preserve the color. Okay, those are a little bit one and the same, right? The antioxidants are the anthocyanidins in the plant. And when you talk about cannabis, for example, how many strains are purple this, purple that, purple, 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 right? And that's the color, right? That's the anthocyanidins. And a lot of people have this misconception that the clearer my extract, and I want no color in my oil, that means it's pure, or it's clean, and that's a little bit of a misnomer, right? Because if you don't have these other compounds in the oil, right, you're not going to get the benefits of those compounds, and therefore the results that you're expecting. So these are things that are educational points that are very hard to get to the consumer to understand. Because our world it has these stereotypes, right? And we have to break these down, okay? And, when you think about all these different compounds that George just talked about, right? It's more than THC, it's more than just cannabinoids, right? And it's even more than terpenes. I can appreciate what George was talking about, how he showed the example of the terpene profile being the same across 3 different, was that plants or extracts? The one-to-one, yeah, there were different plants, but they all gave a similar result, right? So we know that the cannabinoids are modulating the terpenes, and that the terpenes, again, like George said, are the hormones of the plant, but they're also stroking or stimulating is a better word, the hormones in our body, okay? Now, these are very volatile compounds, and I'll let Darius talk a little bit more about those challenges, but, these are the things. Think about it like this. When you smell the plant, you literally physically took a molecular weight terpene from the plant to your nose. It's actually a physical weight loss, right? That's off-gassing. When we talk about volatile organic compounds, right? It's off-gassing. That's why the plants smell the way they do, and that's you can actually, just from smelling the plant, you can get stimulation. You can actually, that's a medicinal reaction that your body is going to have. It's similar to like wine, right? When we talk about wine, they say that smell of the wine and that first sip of the wine is the most medicinal, right? And then after that, we just chase the same reaction as the way our brains are wired, and we drink the whole bottle. But, from a medicinal standpoint, that's very important. So when we talk about keeping these, the extracts, right, because we're all about, concentrating and having, better effects through the concentration, right? It's a real challenge trying to maintain that flower profile with all these various compounds that George has talked about and deliver it in an extract, right? There's always some sort of a compromise that you're making and so forth. But I will tell you from my experience, I've been working with the aerosol extraction methodology that George mentioned in that one slide that showed all the different methods, right? And, it kind of, the aerosol kind of grabbed the range of everything we want and not the stuff we didn't want. And when we say we didn't want it, because we try to remove it in a post-process or winterization, as everybody's been heard about. So the oils that I've made through this extraction process really do maintain 90+% the same profile of the actual flower. And you've seen that through some of the examples of the terpene profiles maintaining the ratios, okay? That is what's most important, okay? I've really focused hard on trying to run the biomass so that we are getting not only the compounds, but we're maintaining the ratios of those compounds in the flower, right? I mean, if we do an extraction and we get 20-25% terpenes, great, you got these terps, but that's not the ratio of 20% in the flower that you're smoking for the reactions, right? So we want to maintain the same ratios in the extracts. And that's the challenge. That's a real challenge. And the last thing I'll leave it with, so Darius gets some time to talk here. What I have studied, and not only studied, but seen anecdotal results, is that the minor compounds in the cannabis plant provide the greatest effects, okay? And those are the things that we're trying to study and try to understand more. And, and I think that the future from a pharmaceutical standpoint, a medical standpoint, if you watch the prior presentation, he showed a really good path of isolation and, formulating these isolated compounds into specific drugs. Well, I just said that the minor compounds seem to provide the greatest, effects. And minors are even harder to isolate, right? It's going to be a challenge. I have full faith in technology and the human ingenuity to someday get there. But I believe in the interim that the more you can keep that flower profile intact, representation of it, and the ratios of the flower profile, you're going to have those minor compounds. They're going to be there, right? And if they're there, you're going to get the effects and the reactions and the medicinal benefits that we expect. And I believe that is our best pathway right now for delivering the results that people expect from products. And the last thing I'll say is that I've developed a lot of products with a lot of different bioavailability methodologies, from a water soluble to a tincture to a vape to a gummy, you name it, right? I've taken the full spectrum oils that I make and translated them through all that. And at the end of the day, that I believe is going to be the purity and delivering that plant profile is going to be our best bet until we have a lot more research and understanding of all these different compounds and the synergistic properties that they have together, right? And, and unfortunately, because a lot of the legal issues, the research has been very limited, but we all see the momentum and that changing. And when we have that studies and we have that information, we can design maybe better drugs. But in the interim, I believe that, the full spectrum, purity, full concentrate type products is your best bet. And I've seen the results over and over and over and over. I started with some CBD products many years ago, and customers that are using those products are still using them today because they work, and that's what people expect. So on that note, I'll pass the torch over to Darius.
Thanks, Mark. Very extensive.
Thank you.
Darius, can you tell us how True Terpene take care of the consistency and the benefits of the growing and extraction?
Yeah, so from our side, really it does start with the cultivar. So making sure that you've selected the proper cultivar to give the expression that you want. If you have a strain that is going to present in blueberry and you want strawberry, it's going to be really hard to extract strawberry from that blueberry. Same thing with the minor cannabinoids. There was a big push in the market. If it's a higher THC content, it's got to be a better strain, and that's definitely not the case. As many people have seen, there was a study done in a paper called The Nose Knows, and they showed that there was no correlation between the THC content of a product and a consumer's likeness index of that product. The really only factor that was highly correlated was sensory. So the more someone liked the sensory of the product, the more they ended up liking the consumption and the after effects of that product. So that's really where our focus came from. Let's make sure that if customers and clients are looking for this, that we're getting it in that cultivar and we're getting the cannabinoid that we're looking for. Second challenge, of course, is the regulatory environment that we work in. As you guys know, our federal government doesn't look so fondly on Delta-9 THC. So one of the challenges that we have taken on is trying to find a cultivar that expresses all of the sensory elements that we want, but either produces a low amount of Delta-9 or no THC. Delta-9 THC. That way we can give this product to any client in any state or any country that would want it. The second thing after you've chosen your cultivar is making sure that you're harvesting at the right time. There is a lot of anecdotal evidence, even I've seen it myself, where there are some cultivars that will express what I would call just peak sensory. The gas is the strongest, the blueberry or the fruit is the strongest for these few days. And then after this, it's there, but it's not there anymore. Being ready to capture that in the field is key. So many people have said like, oh, there's this 1 week where my strain smells amazing and then it doesn't smell like that anymore because I want to wait an extra few weeks and get more yield. Well, it really does depend on what your preference is. Like, are you going after something because of the sensory, or are you going after it because you're going to get a lot of product? And sometimes you want both. And then after that, it's really preserving. A lot of people who have grown cannabis will tell you, you can have the most amazing plant, cut it down, dry it in properly, you've ruined your product. You really have to take a lot of care with it, and especially if you're trying to get like what I call like peak sensory. There's a lot of products that are from either cured material or material that has been slightly dried and then extracted. You're just not getting the same profile that you get in a live plant. And you do get some cannabinoid conversion as you're letting that material dry. So like trying to use fresh frozen material can definitely improve the quality of your product. And then the last part is, or at least the middle part, is extraction. There's not really one method that I would say is better than the others. They all have their pros and cons. Some are easy to scale. Some are not easy to scale. Some have very high fidelity, but their cost to operate is expensive. So really it's what you want to use is the best of both worlds. You may have to use multiple extraction methods to get that end product that you're looking for. Ideally, you'd use one. Sometimes that's not going to keep the fidelity that you want. And then really that last part is working with that client to make sure that they're getting what they want. Like there's some people, they want a strain that's got a higher CBDV content. Well, we need to make sure that we're extracting from a strain that has that. And then trying to provide some lot-to-lot consistency. It's amazing how different plants will be one year, then the next year, oh, these are the same clones from the same mother. It's almost as if it's a different cultivar. And so that end client is not going to get the same experience. So you do have to have some amount of ability to adjust while you're extracting or blending different parts of your field, because one part gets more water, this part got more fertilizer. So if I mix them together in my extracts, I get something that's about the same. It definitely is kind of there's a little bit of art and science to both of it. Yeah, lots of challenges. Regulatory is the biggest one. That is the biggest challenge that we really have.
I want to add something to what Darius said. He brought up a really good point talking about sensory and trying to capture the plant at those perfect times, right? And that's brought up a whole disparity between concentrates and flower. Because if you're used to going to a dispensary and buying flower off the shelf, that's a cured flower, right? And now we're taking the plant from a live standpoint and extracting it in that form, and the compounds and the profile of the plant in a live at that moment that he was trying to capture is going to vary greatly from that of a cured flower, right? Because the plant produces enzymes that are actually for curing, and that's why the hippie cure, right? Let's let it 3 months, 4 months, we want it to cure. So think about the can of worms that I just opened up right there, right? It's amazing. So again, it's something that the consumers aren't educated to understand what the difference between a live resin and a cured resin is. So.
But one thing I will say, and I see that we're slightly over time. Whenever someone tries a product that came from a live plant, they're sold. It's just a heightened experience. It brings you a lot closer to cannabis. The effects are definitely improved over cured material.
Yeah, we can talk about this topic for days. It's a very, very long topic. But
so I guess
if you guys have any questions, let us know.
You guys can hit us up after the thing if any questions anybody has. Thank you so much for attending. Appreciate it.
Both guys can talk about
Yeah, I can also talk about cultivation as well. So I got the green light for that.
that. Okay, yeah.
Well, it's,
cultivation. This is consistency of the strains. That's another thing.
Yeah, and selecting a cultivar as well. So we have an R&D program where we've been selecting specific cultivars for their expression.
Right.